up, YouTube? Hope everyone is doing fine, actually. I'm going to make this a quick lesson. I think it will be a fun lesson to go over. If someone can just tell me if the music is too loud or not, I'm not really sure, but everything should be fine, if I can say so. And today, like I said, we're going to be looking at color grading. I have 3 scenes set up where I just want to basically show a little bit about the color grading, what it is, just in case you're interested. If it's nothing for you, then don't worry about it. Then it is nothing for you. But I think it's always good to know how to color grade a little bit, at least to a certain point, how to correct certain mistakes as well. That's why I took 3 scenes from 3 different locations, all a bit different actually. 1 is from a drone, 2 are from my high-end camera, all shot at f-log. But you can see that different cameras produce different types of f-log, so it's an important thing that you... Oh, the music is now going on my head a little bit. But it's just important that when you... Hey Yuki. Yo Goatsy. No, YouTube is really just for editing, you know. Twitch is only for gaming. That's where I game. I'm not gonna Twitch and do these kind of things. But anyway, for editing, you know, the key, you know, one thing I learned as a kid, when I was watching videos when I was younger, I always found YouTubers and they kept saying, this is the best way to do it. This is the best way to do it. That is the best way to do it. And this is going to help you and that is going to help you. And over the years, I think it's fine. I think editing is fun, but don't listen to everyone with how they do it, because editing is your own artistic skill. You need to find what you enjoy the most. You need to find what gets the most out of you. What do you like? What don't you not like? And let's just jump into the software. Actually, let me quickly jump on to OBS. I think it's this one. There we go. So we're going to start off with color grading a very quick clip from Korea. I think this was Seoul. Beautiful place, actually. And they were all wearing these, I don't know the names of these things anymore, but everyone was trying to take pictures of them. And it's really fun. It's a really colorful thing to film. So can I film? Can I press play? Am I in the software? Now I am in the software. Very small clip. Actually, let's render that again. I did something to it, but I don't know what. It's a very small clip, but it just has some beautiful colors which I want to make a little bit more interesting, a little bit more rather than just the f-log. And for the people who don't understand f-log is nothing more than your camera doing as little as much possible to the footage when filming. That is the simple term of it. And why do you think that's important? Why do you want the camera to do as little as possible? Well, the very simple answer is you have to remember a camera, I don't want to pick it up right now, but a camera is nothing more than a bit of a computer that is trying to process your imagery. And at the end of the day, you know, it does a fine job if you just want to do some holiday footage, but if you have a chance to edit all your work on a computer, your computer is going to perform much better. I mean, you have to compare it. Is a computer going to do better than your than your camera? Then yeah, the answer is going to be yes. I mean, Premiere knows a little bit more when it comes to color coding. You know, it's all about the formats. It's all about the accuracy. You know, you can color grade and you can color grade. You can put a lot on top of something and you can put a lot on top of something. And every company will try and approach this a little bit different, which, you know, if you just find your own little system, you know that f-log is the way to shoot. And I know this as well. I always enjoyed f-log the most. So quickly want to change this up a little bit. There we go. So when it comes to color grading, this is the footage that we're going to color grade today. So like I already showed today, we're going to be looking at a little shot from Korea. Very basic. I don't want to make it too long. And then we have from a festival, a very different scene, dark inside, full of lights, a lot of smoke. It's a little bit different to edit. It's a different process. And of course, at the end of the day, it's all the same process, but it's just, you need to take it with a different approach because you're not filming something that's super bright, you're filming something that's super dark. And there is a lot of information, but it's a little bit of a different process. Great festival, by the way. I think I got not so drunk there, but it was a good time. And lastly, we're going back to Korea. A drone shot from a hotel where I stayed. This is on Haeundae Beach. Haeundae? I call it Hyundai Beach, but Haeundae Beach. Great beach, great hotel. This was the only hotel on the beach. You know, you just walk outside and boom, you're on the beach. Fantastic location, and also the scenery in the background. The buildings, they go up and so high, and when you go in between them, you're like, wow, what is happening? And the reason why I want to choose this footage is because it's quite blue. I don't remember what I did to it, but I had to fix it somehow. So I'm going to try and show all these different settings that I have here. And we're just going to walk through it actually bit by bit. And also, I'm going to explain these things in non-technical terms. I think technical terms can be good, but I just want to explain it more with an emotional term, just to understand from my perspective what it does. So let's start off with the first footage. And again, guys, if you have any questions, then just ask them ahead. It doesn't even have to be about color grading. It can be just about a workflow. Let's drag these all together so it's a little bit easier to look at. So on the side here, and this is Adobe Premiere, it might look a bit different on your software. You might have DaVinci Resolve or HitFilm. It should look very similar. I know HitFilm, the last time I checked it, it is very similar to this. So it should not be much different. I'm not really sure how DaVinci Resolve has it now, but I think they also have this. And they know exactly what to do when it comes to color grading. I think it's a little bit more complex than this, but for my needs, this is fine. So let's start with the basics of editing. So we're going to start with a white balance. So for people that want to understand what a white balance is, a white balance is nothing more than just how are your whites portrayed? Are they more blue or are they more reddish? It's a very interesting fact because when you go to Dubai, normally actually Muslim countries, for them, white is more on the reddish tone, meaning it's going to go a little bit in this direction. Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong file. It's going to go a little bit more in this. Wait, is it doing anything? There we go. A little bit more into this direction. And you can see whites are still white, but it's a little bit more orange. It's a little bit more warm. But when it comes to the Western society, we prefer whites to go a little bit more in the blue direction, a little bit colder, a little bit more crispy. And depending with who you work, of course, on any project, yeah, well, the simple answer is find who your client is and see, okay, if they want something warmer, make it a little bit warmer. But generally, this is also just a good tool to use in case you have your white balance incorrect. You can just play around with it and yeah, make it hot or warm. That's the simple thing with it. If you have your settings correctly, which I hope you do, leave it on 0. And if you have to, play with this setting at the very end. But this is generally also a very good place to play with different scenes, different scenarios, to kind of color match them in post. It's a very important thing that if one scene is warm and the next scene is also warm, but the footage is a bit blue, just make it a little bit warmer, make it a little bit more accurate. And hey, Frank Man, I saw you just subscribed actually. I just got a notification on my phone. So just saw that on my phone. But when it comes to the more important part, we're going to talk about tone. And tone is just the entire feeling of a camera. And to me, it's the body, the blood of the video. That's how I like to call it. You know, you can make something look so detailed. You know, it's your canvas where you want to say, what colors do I want to use? What colors do I want to portray? And starting with your exposure. So exposure is nothing more than intensifying your footage, making the whites whiter and the blacks blacker, so more intense. Let's just dial up. Oh, wait. Sorry, that's not exposure, that's contrast. Exposure is nothing more than making your footage darker or brighter. And this is also actually something that your camera should have under control. But let's say your footage looks like this. To be honest, if your footage looks like this, it's really hard to get back information because most information is lost in the whites because it's just too white. But in the contrast, if you have it too dark, then you can always just crank it up. But if you have a good exposure generally, it should be fine. But if it's too dark or too bright, just play with it a little bit and see what you can do to fix it as much as possible without destroying your footage. Because this looks terrible, also this kind of looks terrible. And no, this is not me trying to make this look as a night scene. It's more just trying to keep it balanced, keep it nice, keep the details there. Make sure that you can zoom in if you have to. Look at it on a bigger screen and yeah, look at the details. You know, you want to see as much detail as possible. I think that's the beauty of filming these days. These cameras are tech sharp, at least I hope so. And based on this, you can really just push out some great detail. Coming to contrast, which I kind of already did, a bit of a spoiler review. Let's put that back to 0. Contrast is really just for me the tool that intensifies something. So to show it is much easier. The more I drag it, the more intense the colors get. Do you see how it's just getting a bit darker? The blacks are getting darker. The whites are a little bit whiter. It just creates a more intense feeling. On the other hand, if you reduce it, it just gets rid of it. It kind of turns my F-Log footage already into a more F-Log. You basically, this is how raw footage will look like most likely, but I don't have a camera that can shoot raw. But if you're just on 0 and you just want to intensify some of these things, then do so. It just creates a little bit more of an in-depth feeling. Just play around with it. I normally don't crank it up too high because I used to at the beginning, because it's a very easy way to make things just look very intense from the start. But in this day and age, I kind of ignore it, leave it on 0, because I learned that with your highlights, your shadows, your whites, your blacks, you can be much more specific with your contrast. You can make your blacks, your shadows, because shadows and blacks are completely two different elements basically. You can really just play around with everything individually rather than just playing with contrast and say, okay, I'm done. I would not take that approach. It's not my favorite approach. But if you're a starter and this is your thing, then please just play with contrast first and slowly then understand what is a highlight, what is a shadow, what are your whites, and what are your blacks. So now we're going to go to the next part, which is highlights. Well, it's nothing more than basically what are the whites. It's really focusing on the bright colors, and you're trying to get rid of them or you're trying to create them. It depends where you are. If it's too bright, for example, on this umbrella, I'm like, oh no, I think it's just too highlighted. Crank it down a bit. Get some of that information back, you know? And there you have a little bit more information on the umbrella. Of course, it makes some of the other whites also a little bit darker, but that's fine. You can just work with this a little bit and play around with it. You know, it's all just baby steps and trying to understand where to go next. I think that is just the key when it comes to editing, just taking your time and understanding what everything does. When it comes to your shadows, and shadows is exactly what it means. It really looks at the blacks that represent some sort of shadow. So the more you drag it to the negative side, the more intense the shadows get. It also makes your colors a little bit darker, but it's not the blacks. The blacks are even your darker blacks. Well, that's the easy way to explain it. A little bit confusing. The more easy way is just to show it. But if you want to get rid of shadows, let's say, I need to have a look anyway. You're just getting rid of as much black as possible on the screen, which might be a potential shadow. And of course, this software doesn't know that this, for example, is a shadow. You just need to live with that. But it does try to reduce it by highlighting it more. But by playing with it a little bit too much, you can also destroy your footage. So I would really just play around with it and say, if I want more shadows, crank it down a little bit. If I want to reduce some shadows, just crank it up. Why do you maybe want to crank it up a little bit? Well, if you got a dark scene, and maybe we'll see that with my next clip, then you can basically just say, okay, I want to see more detail in people's faces. I want to see more highlights. I want to see more information. And that might be something that you might be interesting. But for me, I always just enjoy a little bit more dark because this was a bright scene. And now we're at whites. Well, your whites are literally what it says as well. Your whites are just playing with the white colors that it has. It's talking about not really the brightness or the exposure. It's really just talking about the highlighted colors which are there. Is something too intense? Is it too white? Is it too blown out? Play with your whites. Crank it up or crank it down. As you can see here, we're not talking about highlights because it doesn't really affect this part here. That is for your highlight effect. You see? You get information, reduce information. But with your whites, you can just make sure that it just stays beautifully intact while brightening your scene or reducing the brightness. You see, it's really just your exposure, but a little bit more detailed. You can decide which white you want to make brighter and which one you want to reduce in brightness. And the same comes for the blacks. So we're going to, let's see what it does. There we go. You see, when it comes to blacks, the software here is a little bit more, well, it knows a little bit more what it's doing, but it's focusing on the darker colors. For example, do you see this tree here? This is most likely a tree or a shadow. I don't remember. It was a bit of a time ago. it just makes that a little bit darker. However, it might also crush the blacks. If you see some type of crushing, and crushing is nothing more than pixels appearing and they look like they just look like massive blobs of pixels, you know you just crushed your blacks too much. Try to lift it up a little bit, and also you get a little bit more details back. And that is really the basics of editing. If you just play around with it, and this is the best thing you can do, just play around with it. It would just be a better time for you as well. It's all just about experience. Let's crank it down to 0. See where we started, because we were just playing around with it. So if this was my scene and someone just sent us over and they said, would you like to color correct it? Let's just go over it bit by bit. I don't remember what I did with my old footage, but let's see what happens. I think I just want to make it a little bit brighter, and I'm only talking about like 0.4, like minimal. Contrast I'm not going to touch yet. Highlights I know I want to reduce a little bit because it's fine, but a little bit too much on the umbrella. The shadows I want to decrease a little bit. I think it's fine as well, but for this shot I really just want to make it a little bit less intense on the eyes. I just want to make it a little bit more focused on her rather than any of the other colors. Whites. I want to make it a little bit brighter. I think it's nice, but I just want to make it a little bit more spectacular to look at. When it comes to blacks, I'm thinking, should I go darker or not? You see, it doesn't have too much of an effect here, but I think this looks fine the way it does. The next thing we can look at is saturation. Saturation is nothing more than you just, well, fixing the colors. You know, it's just a saturation on all the colors. How are they portrayed? Let me just display it to you. You see, the more you crank it up, the more colorful everything gets. The more you crank it down, the black and whiter it gets. And depending on the mood you want to get, if you want to go with a nice black and white effect, this is fine. But if you want to make a black and white, play with the shadows a little bit more. You know, it can just intensify the entire shot a little bit. But for my needs, I just want to put it on 100% and just crank it up a little bit. Just a little bit. Just to make sure that it's enough color without over colorizing it. Because if I go, for example, too much, it turns a little bit too blue. Now, for this example, I can go back to temperature and just say, okay, I notice it's just a little bit too blue here. We can get rid of that, but just go into the temperature, make it a little bit warmer, and there you go. The blue is gone, at least on my monitor. Depending on what monitor you use, it might differ, but your goal is always just to get rid of some imperfect colors, and that's the only way you can do it with this. Temperature, and of course your tint. If you notice that it's a bit too green, that's a little bit too much. There we go. I changed it just a minor bit, but I noticed that it was a little bit too purpley. I'm trying to see. No. There we go. And for now, I think this is a perfect scene. Let me just show you guys the original. And the not original. Let's see if we can get on the same. Is that the same scene? It is kind of the same scene. And you just tell me what you like. Again, it all depends on your needs. If this is too much for you, too much color, play with it. This is your paintbrush. And here is where you can do exactly what you want to do. So that's the beauty of color grading. Ooh, let's let it save. Again, guys, if you have any questions, then please ask them. I'm going to also put this scene on it a little bit. Let's cut some away because I don't need everything. Okay, let's go with this one. There we go. Sorry, I had to make sure that everything is loaded incorrectly. So this is a night scene. This is in a tent. As you can see, there's smoke, there's fog. And let's just go over the color correction again. Again, I also need to say, what I do is not correct. You know, you might not like the way I color grade. That's fine. But it's all just about personal preference. Anyway, I see the scene and I notice one thing. You're shooting inside, so what is the one thing I want to do? I want to get rid of some information here. I think it's just a little bit too bright here. It just shows a little bit too much. So the first thing I'm going to do is just play with the highlights a little bit. Does that work? Sorry, that's actually the wrong one. Whites, I mean. Just crank it down a little bit. While the shadows I also want to crank down just to reduce it, make it a little bit more intense for myself. I want to make the people also, in case you don't see it, let's try and crush some blacks. Is that even possible? I don't know if you guys can see it on YouTube, but the moment you play with you know, the blacks, and it's a very black scenario, and you crush blacks, you can see on the outside of the frame that you slowly start crushing some blacks, meaning you'll get these weird artifacts on there which are not too nice. I need to think, does that look a little bit better? I think it looks a little bit better. Let's see what we can do with highlights. I want to intensify actually the lights. I like the lights. I want to increase the contrast a little bit to get rid of some of that white. Exposure is fine actually. There we go. That looks actually really good. When it comes to saturation, again, you can do saturation when it comes to really in-depth color correcting, but this is again the basics of color correcting. You just want to play it simply with saturation. Just crank it up a little bit, intensify it a little bit, but don't go crazy and do it like this. I mean, yeah, it looks fine, but it's a little bit too intense for my taste. I mean, this is black and white. This is kind of the original. I just want to have a little bit more blue. And for now, the temperature in my eyes looks really fine. The white really looks white. The yellows look yellow. The grays look gray. And, you know, for my color palette, it just looks perfectly fine. Again, it's just about the basics of editing. It's just about getting slowly things done and understanding what do I do for my videos. And this is something that's really important, again, because when I look at videos sometimes, music videos, to me it's something frustrating when you have two scenes that are identical, and I mean identical without even color grading it. I'm talking about they're in the same place, the same location and everything. But if it jumps from one scene to the other and the colors look so different, it really just bothers me, because it's something that takes time, and you can even just copy and paste your edits you know, from one clip to the other. But if people forget that, I think that's just a really lazy way of editing. I think it's just very important that when you edit, you just make everything look very accurate as much as possible. So, for example, this is how I colored graded it. Let's see how it looks in the original. Which one do you guys prefer? Do you prefer to keep it simple? Do you prefer to keep it unedited? Just leave it in the comments below, or just write it in the chat right now. And that's really it. You know, it's all just about keeping to it. And also when you come to color grading, now I've done this effect. Whatever I'm going to do with all my other videos, it has to follow the same rule. It has to follow the same thumbprint. It's just very important, because if you cannot do it, it just messes up the video and looks like 20 people have edited your video, which is something you just want to completely avoid. And again, guys, for anyone who just joined in, I see people jumping in and jumping out. This is all just about color correction. This is a scene from Korea, which I filmed. This is in Seoul. This is what I did to the footage, bringing the picture a little bit more alive. I think it's a very kind of colorful scene. The floor has to be beautifully gray, but her outfit, I want to match kind of the scene here. And this is the original. Tell me if you like it or not. Again, it's just all personal preference. But like I already said as well, if you follow this schematic over your editing process, then just continue it. Keep pushing through. What a difference, actually, day and night. I just want to check out this one. Let's not watch all of it. But I love the party. They were having such a good time. Oh yeah, it's a bit frozen. So, this is the original. This is the edited one. Which one do you prefer? Original or edited? Personally, I'm a little bit more fan of my own, just because it's more focused on them rather than here. There's a lot of things going on, which is great, like phones in the air and everything, but I want to keep my eyes on them. And also the display is a little bit too intense. While here, you just make it a little bit more blacker while they are really on focus. Fantastic, that makes me happy. And lastly, let's look at some DJI footage. Okay, where to start? Well, the first thing I notice when I look at this clip, it's a little bit too blue. So I just want to get rid of some blueness, crank up the temperature a little bit, make it a little bit warmer, a little bit more. Oh, that's even the wrong scene. Apologies for that. Let's anyway crank that down then. Also, guys, when you edit, make sure that you're on the right scene. But let's crank it up a little bit more. We're getting there. Is it a maybe a little? Let's try 19. I think that kind of looks good. I mean, can we get the original on here as well? Let's get the original so we always have a comparison. So this is what I just did just with the color correction, and this was the original. Do you see how blue it is? Well, this one is just a little bit more natural to the eyes. It's a little bit too much yellow. I think 16 was a good one. I think that looks fine. Also, please mind that the entire day was very foggy, so the colors were a little bit complex to shoot, especially on a drone, because you couldn't get the color accuracy. Like, yeah, the orange is orange, but it didn't really come out too nice. I also noticed it's a little bit too green. Okay, that looks fine now. Okay, so again, the shot, we fixed the blue, we fixed the basics of just fixing up your footage, exposure. Do you want to crank it up? Let's just see what happens actually. No, you don't want to crank it up. Why? Because you're going to blow out completely the skies. Keep this on 0. It's fine the way it is. You will fix this in a second with highlights if you want. There you go. Now you have your sky a little bit more back. I think the sun was also over here, so it's really hard to make sure that that is gone. But for the rest, you can just reduce it a little bit. Contrast, let's add that a little bit later. Shadows. You see, it has a lot of shadows, but I want to just give a little bit more detail to the bushes here. I think they were just a little bit missing. Like if you go back on 0, it's a little bit too dark. Let's bring it a little bit of life, just a little bit. It's not about going crazy with it. It's just about making sure that everything is there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that is some crashed blocks. Really crashed blacks there. That's terrible. Let's go a little bit further in the scene because I want to see it. I want to crank up the exposure just a little bit. There we go. And we're just getting a little bit more of a detailed shot. A little bit more of information on the picture. I mean, if we look at it, if this will get sharper at one moment, just take some time to render it. There we go. I think the shot is so much better than if we have to compare it to the original. It's very blue. It's a little bit dark. Let's actually get this completely into frame because this was shot in 2K rather than full HD. There we go. Let's go back on fit and just compare the two shots. It's all just about making sure that what you see is as realistic as possible. You know, again, if you want a blue video, you know, crank this stuff down. Just go completely bonkers on it if you want. You know, here, boom. If that's your thing, go for it. But that's not my thing. What did we have it on? I think we had it on 16. There we go. It just looks a little bit more natural. And then we'll just play a little bit with the saturation because this was still shot a little bit in F-Log. I forgot my settings, but I remember it was, I think, D-Cine-like. Let's crank it up a little bit. Just a little bit. Let's go a little bit more creative. I want to fix it a little bit. Curves. I mean, look how beautiful it's slowly getting now. Can we crank up the red a little bit? No, I don't want that. Let's ignore that. Let's get rid of that one. Don't play with that. I thought with the red one I could just play a little bit with it. I want to make the red a little bit more think RGB curves is a really complex thing to do. I'm being serious about it. I'm trying to think. There we go. The red. Oh. It's the beautiful thing about... come on. Oh. I'm trying to make it a little bit more... Isn't this where I can change the color? Just wanted to make the red a little bit more red, which is a little bit finer. Do I want to denoise it? Really, that's a purple. I didn't even know that. I just want to play around a little bit with it while we can. Let's put it back on fit. But if we just compare the scenes again, we're going to jump back again quickly. Just look how it changes. It's all about just bringing the picture a little bit more alive. You know, it's about giving back to the video. It's about making sure that what you give is not just a video, and it all just takes time. Like, the best way to do it is just go ahead and film and throw it into a software and play around with the settings. And that's the most beautiful way to edit, because you're going to find your own style. If you're going to watch YouTube videos with professionals who say, this is my way of editing, it's fine, but you're not really going to practice a lot with it. You're just going to copy a style and make it your own, or claim it as your own and say, oh, look, this is me. And this is something that I just learned by myself, especially when I had clients. You know, they came to me because of our style. You have to be unique on the market. And of course you also have LUTs, light unit, is it light unit index? No. Light unit table? Light. It's basically a thing where you can instantly change this if you want. We talked about it already at the beginning of the stream, but you can buy these packages as well. They're fine, but at the same time, they're not fine, because a lot of people confuse LUTs with that you can just throw them on any RAW video. It's not true. Every video that is RAW is different from each other. If I shoot with a Canon compared to a Fuji, it's two different types of RAW. You know, they're not equal. They all do it in their own way. So that is kind of important to remember. And if you just get these basics down, you're on a good way, actually. And again, if you have any questions regarding coloring, or you are just going to try something, then please just tell them to me. I'm trying to see if I want to change something. I want to go away a little bit from the bluish tone. I think it was nice. I just want to make my highlights a different color rather than the RGB white. Midtones, I think they're fine, but don't go completely crazy with it, you know. Go very subtle with these changes. A little bit more blue, I would say. Can I? Maybe pink, blue? I hope you guys can see this actually on YouTube. I'm not really sure. Put in the comments if you want to, or just tell me if you can see it. And with your shadows, shadows should be black, you know, but we're really just talking about the darker. You see how my shadows just turn red? That's fine, but it's not ultimately good. So let's quickly make a comparison again with the original and what I have done. I do want to quickly increase the brightness, just the exposure, sorry. Let's check it up to 2. Oh no, that's a little bit too much. You see how my sky just disappeared? I lost a lot of information. Let's try 1.5. We're getting a little bit more information. Now, what do I just 1.1? Ooh, I think that's it. Should we... I'm going to quickly render this down, and then if no one has questions, I want you guys just to see the difference in the color grading. And then we can just, let's get this to ripple delete. I can't. There we go. We're going to just sequence, render into out. We're just going to see what happens. It might take a little while, but let's be here together just. Beep, bop, boop, da, bop, beep, bop, boop, da, beep, bop, boop, da, bop. And that is the best way to actually do things, you know. Just work it through on your own level and understand what changes what. Because if you don't learn mistakes and you don't ask for feedback, people are going to come back and say, what did you do? Why did you do this? I quickly have to check something in the meanwhile. When you know, sometimes you just get a message. You know, business is business. But, you know, my goal is, and what a lot of people just told me is to, when you edit, just make sure that you do things on your own way. Find your own skill set. Find what you enjoy the most. Do you enjoy color grading? Go much deeper in it. This is just really touching not even the iceberg tip. We're talking about maybe the snow on the iceberg. You know, it's not even the core of it yet. I went a little bit deeper on it with the curves and with the, you know, pulling the diagrams a little bit. It's a little bit more fun to play with that if you get into it. Maybe that's for next time. Of course, if you want to, then please just say it. But for now, it's just very important that you just practice. Practice makes perfect. If you just learn how to color grade a picture, maybe that's a good start. Download a software. There's multiple free ones where you can just color pictures. Go on it, because it might just help you out a little bit, you know, with color grading. And this is also something that I'm very critical about. If you do something with one pattern, follow it. If you're all of a sudden thinking, oh, for this scene I want to do completely different, if it doesn't just get justified accordingly, don't do it. Just don't do it. Follow your heart, follow your belief, and the main thing as well, don't question yourself too much. Because if you question yourself too much, your product is going to be looking completely different from the next day. That is a very important point to remember. I wonder how some YouTubers have it actually with beards. I'm not a fan of beards, but I like it, but I don't like it. Beep, bop, boop da pop, beep, bop, boop da. Beep, bop, boop, boop da bop, and we're soon done, 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 done. I think you guys cannot even see it now, but it's rendering. There's a, oh no, it's a different. So this is a different thing that you guys don't see actually. So it's just running through it. I'm gonna just reset this quickly. I want to first have. I want the unoriginal to come first. And then we'll have the original. I think that's the more fair way to handle these things. Oops, there we go. So let's go in, look at the video and see what you guys think about it. And as we always say, we're first starting off with raw footage. Okay, so we're just going to talk about F-Log, and this is what we all did together. And if you have any questions on how I did anything, just ask them while I'm showing this. This is not longer than a minute, but you can kind of get a rough idea to what happened in the footage. So let's jump into it. I would actually just make this a little bit more whiter, saying it just to make them pop out a little bit more. But these are things that you notice, so keep reviewing your work as well. It's always just, go see, nothing is wrong with it. And this is the drone footage. This is the original one. I think this was in Decinelike, but my white exposure, or sorry, my white balance was a little bit too much on the blue side. A little bit too much. I already noticed this out later, but right after this a storm came, so I had to kick the drone down. If you do have any issues with your ears, you can always write an email to complaints@youtube.com. And this is the remade one. A little bit more live. It's taking a little bit more consideration about the weather. It's a little bit warm, and this is also how I remember it as well. This is, I think, the best way how I pictured it. Super bright, super warm looking. The red was super red. Just playing with your colors. I think this is really a good fix. Again, if you have a chance to film away from the sun, I think the sun was behind this building, do so, because it's really hard to fix that. Yeah, and the color of the walls were also this color, while here they look very white. They were not white, they were actually this beige color. You can even see the two different colors easier. This dark brown, a little bit of beige here, while here it's very hard to distinguish what it actually was. Is it brown, is it white? This is very color accurate for me right now, but looks great. Makes me happy. I should actually send this over to the hotel. It was a great hotel. I was gonna watch it one more time. It's a little bit too purpley for me. That's totally fine. Also, very good tip, Gosi. You know, when it comes to editing, if you don't like the music that you're gonna hear in the editing and you need to work with music, you really need to live with it. Whether you like it or not, this is just how the industry is. And sometimes this is not even that loud. Here, I can still kind of hear the music because the speaker wasn't a speaker, it was just the internal mic, but I needed to use it. But sometimes it can be really bad. It can really be a pain in the bum. Yeah, this is happy. This makes me happy. Really just nostalgic looking at this shot here. I don't know, is it smooth for you guys as well? I hope so. For me it is. And it was kind of weird because I need to think about it. Like if we went down that way, there is a building there that was from Trump. A Trump Tower in Korea. I didn't even know he had towers there. Very good learning effect here as well. Did you guys see that stutter? Did you see it at the very beginning? It's just like right there. It was right at the beginning. There's a change of speed. So if I have to make this video a little bit better, I will cut around here. Ripple delete. Remember from last lessons, it's just all about cutting and learning. Just play with it. Now it's a little bit more smoother. I don't have that issue. The longer you do editing, the more you notice small things that will frustrate you in the sense of things that shouldn't be in the video. If something is panning away smoothly, everything has to pan away smoothly. If all of a sudden the camera or my drone moves to the left to the right or pans from left to right, that has to be taken away. It is just a really weird way of filming. I think it looks fine. I still want to see if I can make the greens a little bit more green. Let's do that before RGB curves. Did you see where that was? There we go. Did we get something out of there? Come on, give me something. No, it's not blue. Come on. Can we fix this somehow? Can we fix this somehow? Come on, move. See, it's fixing the trees here a little bit. But I'm trying to fix. Let's denoise a little bit. Why not? Denoising is just getting rid of some pixels, but I think that is quite a nice shot. We kind of fixed it. I'm not too happy with the trees, but they came out a little bit more different than I wanted. But the focus is not the trees, the focus is really just these buildings, and I think that is the key of this video. And now of course it is all messed up again because I'm playing with the colors again, and it just messes up with the entire video. But if you can just fix these things, it just makes editing beautiful. And yeah guys, if you have any questions, I'll let the stream go for another 30 seconds. Better be quick with typing. If not, that's totally fine, and we can just continue next week with editing to sound, which is another very beautiful point to look at. If you can edit to music, it's something that's fun as well. It's something that can just be done creatively, and I think that's a fair thing to look at. And then actually we got the basics down. I mean, if you have any questions and you want me to go a little bit more in topic about how I approach certain things, then please just ask me. You know, that's the only way that I can learn, that you can learn, by asking questions. Because if you don't ask, then you don't know. I remember as a kid when I saw these changes in videos. I'm just happy I was able to get this color here back to orange, because this was a bronze colored building and now it looks a bit better again. But I remember as a kid when I was looking at people color grading, I thought, oh god, this is difficult. This is really just unbelievable to watch. And now that I'm doing it already for a couple of years, you know, it makes things a little bit more easier. You know your process, you know where you need to go into. But this is generally with everything, you know. And hello, Sophia. I think Sophia can tell you all about that. She draws and does animations. And I think Sophia can agree that, you know, the more you practice, the easier things get. And it's just the most simplest way of getting things done. You know, just by pushing your limits. It's all just about pushing your getting out of the comfort zone and just play with it. I mean, a lot of people think because they shot something that already looks cool. You know, a drone shot is always cool. But when it comes to actually fixing it, a lot of people think because they tried to fix it. Sophia, give me your opinion, by the way. What do you think? Do you think it looks better? Let's quickly get it on screen, because I think you just joined. What do you think, Sophia? Do you think this looks better, or do you think this looks better? Just tell me. Number 1 or number 2? Number 1, number 2. A lot of people think that when they edit, that they mess up their footage. No, you don't mess up anything. You always have the original files. You know, you will always have your original files. Just play around with it. You can get really frustrated. I had times when I was editing something and at the end of the day I was like, you know, it's just shit. So what do? I throw it away. I don't think about it. And maybe after a week or two, I will come back to it and say, okay, what did I do wrong? Why don't I like it? Ask yourself why. And it's all just about that. If you can explain why you don't like it, then you know that you don't like it. But if you're just saying, I don't like it for no reason, it doesn't help you. You want to improve, you know, to the point where you understand, oh, I don't like that because of that. I don't like this clip because it's too blue. You know, if you take things apart, it just makes it much more easier to learn from your mistakes and grow further. And I totally agree. I love number 2 much more as well. I think it's so much better. Let's ask Sophia again. Sophia, should I play it again? You know what? I'll play it again. Let's actually, one sec, I want to unlink, and let's get rid of the music before you guys have bleeding ears. We don't want people on the stream with bleeding ears. That's not the goal. So I did 3 clips today. A basic color correction, like really just the basics without just going crazy on top of it. We're really talking just about the exposure, the contrast, the highlight, shadows, whites, the temperature, and really just working a little bit with saturation. And this is what I have to show. Number 1, unedited. Number 2, edited. Number 1, unedited. Number 2, edited. Unedited, and you get the goal from there. I only did those 3. I didn't want to make the stream too long. But tell me what you think. Do you think it's It's good. Do you enjoy it? Did you think it was a good edit? Again, it's not about. It's all just about personal change. What do you like? What do you want to improve on? And that's how you just get better. And never say you're perfect, because if you say you're perfect, you give up and you don't want to improve. Learn from your mistakes and get ready for it. And I think that's it, really, guys. This is not going to play very smooth because I try to fix the greens a little bit more. They look a little bit green, but maybe I have to get rid of some blue. It takes a lot of time. Like, I would maybe play with this scene a little longer, but it just takes a bit of time. And I don't want to bother people who are really just starting with editing with complex things. Of course, if you have a question and you want me to fix something properly, ask away. But if not, then I would like to just thank everyone for watching and for their time. And I want to thank everyone who was here, of course. Could you tell the Discord that my account was deactivated? Yes, I could. Let me do that now, actually, while we're there. Why was it deactivated, though? Maybe you can say that and I can tell it to Andy. Andy told me her Discord account got deactivated. Okie dokie. Where are we? I think we're now really it. Yeah, I did it for you if you want. Why is it deactivated though? Tell me that. And also, guys, to anyone who watched so far, thank you for all the support actually over the last 2 weeks. My channel, I never thought it would grow as much as it did. I mean, we're not talking about millions of subscribers, but even the 40 people that joined over the last 2 weeks, I really appreciate it about that. And the feedback, the comments, the nice comments that I'm getting about, that my videos are helping people with learning a little bit more about breaking down videos and everything. I think that's really cool. And I think it's also very impactful for me because I just kind of learn as well a few things on the road, like things that I will pay attention to. Like one thing I learned so far a lot about reviewing these music videos is all about the harmony. It's just all about the pulling apart the issues, because it's generally like that with everything. If you don't know how to look at your issues, then Sophia, what happened though? Like, was it taken away from you, or is it because I think Discord is not from 18 up. I think they have it kind of open. No, just saying. Just saying. Just trying to understand. Always when I think I scratch my beard. Look, Sophia, if you want, like I say, just join me once in a while. I think you're in Ireland, no? So, look, P.S. I'm half Irish, but literally half Irish. But I want to do these things weekly, so maybe every Thursday. And slowly I'm coming to an end when it comes to basic editing. But when you just have a question, just ask me. I can just go on a live stream. We can do these things together. Maybe more people will join, and we can have a very simple lesson, I would say. That's what I can just say. Answer your questions, because at the end of the day, when I was 12, 13, 14, I also had to understand what editing was and what I had to do to move forward. And just open up a new account, I would say. No, that's the easiest thing to do. I think that's the very easy thing to do. And I think I'm going to stop the stream slowly there, unless you have any questions, Sophia, about it. For anyone who's interested, I know this kind of sounds silly for you, Sophia, but I have a Discord as well. For anyone who wants to get in contact with me, if you want to support me on Patreon, because I'm getting demonetized with everything I do, because the content I work with guess what? Yeah, I edit music videos. It's always belonged to someone else, and it's the only thing ever. And the good thing is, the Patreon is only the price of a really crappy coffee a month, 1.90, and if not mistaken, €1. If you want to support me, thank you very much. If not, that's fine as well. I'm going to keep on going. I really enjoy it generally, and don't worry about it. And if you want, just get in contact with me. Make sure you're subscribed, and I'll gladly answer any of your questions in the near future. And I hope to reach 600 soon as well. I mean, 550 I'm really, really close to. I think I'm at 542. 8 more to go, and I think I should be able to reach that by Sunday. Maybe next week. I'm not really sure. Let's see how I'm going to update videos. But thank you very much, guys, and love you all. Thank you all for the great support. It's been a blast so far. I'm happy that I came back to YouTube after all the time and making great talks. Don't worry. Don't worry. But thank you very much, and I'm going to end the stream here now. Sophia, if you want, just... there must be a way to contact us. I'm trying to think of one. We'll find one out, okay? If in worst case, just leave a comment in one of my videos and I'll make sure to know who you are, and then I'll get back to you. Yeah? See you then, guys.